Hello and welcome to this episode of our program. Well, today, before we start with our discussion, let me first extend our best wishes to our partner in life, our Egyptian brothers, the Coptic Egyptians, for the Christmas. So Merry Christmas to all the Egyptians in all governorates, if I may say. Starting with our discussion, let me first welcome our guest, Dr Mohamed Foad, Member of Parliament and, of course, economic expert. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be here always.
Thank you very much. We start from Ahram online in Egypt. Sisi attends Coptic Christmas Mass for second straight year. And President Fattah al-Sisi attended the Coptic Christmas Mass on Wednesday for the second straight year at St. Mark's Cathedral, Orthodox Cathedral in Cairo's Abbasiyya district, where he gave a small speech to mark the religious events. I guess we have heard what he said yesterday. He extended his apologies for not completing what was damaged of the churches before. He said that we are united as a one nation, and of course extended his best wishes to our brothers. For the second consecutive year, the President attended the Coptic Orthodox Mass. How do you view the significance of this? Because it was not the habits in any of earlier presidents
Yes,
in Egypt.
indeed, not at all, because there have always been special envoys, but President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is putting a new legacy or a new tradition. And I think the message is very strong, and it's extremely important. It is not simple lip service that we are one nation, but indeed we are one nation that share together the bad moments as well as the good moments. We are together with as one nation in all type of situation. I think it's a strong human message before even being a strong political message.
Very much indeed, but how do you think it reflected on or how did the Western perceived this visit? Now, I'm not speaking about our brothers, our Coptic brothers in the nation, but rather how the Western perceived this message, because we are all Egyptians. We are very much appreciating that the President attends one of, or mark one of course, our important celebrations as Egyptians. But how the Western perceived such a visit?
On an international level, I think ever since the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has won the presidential election, the views on Egypt and religious liberties and the liberties of minorities and partners in the country have improved vastly over the past 3 years. From low moments in 2012 and 2013, I believe we are now well on our way where the West is actually there aren't a lot of comments with regards to clampdowns or problems with prosecutions or religious liberties on minorities.
Yes, from The Guardian, and we turn on to regional issues. But before turning to our regional issues, because it is part of our foreign policy of how we perceive things, we all know that the new parliament will be opening, or the inaugural session of the first parliamentary session would be on the 10th this month, and we are very much waiting for the parliament to convene, and part of it would be the foreign policy, or accepting or approving the foreign policy part of the general policies of Egypt. Now, from The Guardian here, we see Libya bomb attacks kill dozens at police training center. And it says that there was no immediate claim of responsibility for the truck bomb attack, which was one of the deadliest since militants started expanding their presence in the chaos that followed the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. Now, Libya is one concentration of how we are dealing with our challenges, particularly the challenges regional-wise. Now, how do you view the problem of Libya, and how do you view Egypt's foreign policy towards such an issue?
Libya's crisis is one that deserves a lot of attention. Specifically, if not for what's happening on the ground itself, and this piece of news is indeed drastic because this is an escalation in the level of the chaos which is happening. It's the first time, and we're talking about probably over 60 casualties that this bombing will claim, probably the biggest in Libyan recent history. So this is deadly, and the problem with such problems, with such catastrophic situation, is that you go through it once and you cross a certain line, and then it becomes habitual. I hope that this does not become the case, because we've seen such escalations at the time in 2003, 2004, such escalation at the Iraqi situation following the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Now here, we have no stabilizing force on the ground. We have a no-win situation for any of the parties. International community, which has washed their hands completely of the situation, refusing to arm what's believed to be the legitimate government of Libya, asking both parties to come to terms and then we'll come and talk to you. So the way that this situation is unfolding, it's probably going to be a crisis much more severe than what we've seen in Iraq from 2002 until 2009, when things started to calm down. So this is a new breed of problems which we're going to see. So this is the first part of the question. The second part of the question, I think Egypt definitely will need to play a stronger role to stabilize the situation within Libya. However, the nature of what's happening on the ground leaves no immediate answer to how the situation could be resolved. Typical regional strifes or regional problems is when you have arguments between two factions, two sides of the countries, but when you have problems where paramilitia or quasi-terrorist groups are controlling the scene, negotiations become rather difficult.
Yes, very much indeed, and that has to be determined, the role played by Egypt, but not just Egypt, but rather the whole, if I may say, the Arab countries who are still standing on their own feet.
Absolutely.
Will have to work on this crisis that is truly threatening. From one regional aspect to another, and from Khalij Times and Israel to add Western or Bank church compound to settlement block. And Israel Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon has consented to make the West Bank property once owned by a church that was later bought by a right-wing American Jew, a part of the Gush Etzion settlement block. Of course, we all know that Israelis do not differentiate really between Muslims and Christians as long as they are Palestinians. So this is part of their annexation to lands, to Palestinian lands. How do you view here the Israeli stagnant policy in dealing with what we call the settlement activities, with what it calls of it does not abide by any kind of pressures put by any of the international community? It even doesn't give us the face that it really wants any kind of peace negotiations. How do you view here the scene?
If you just look for a moment at the topic we've just discussed before, Libya, probably somewhere along the line we might discuss Syria, we might discuss Yemen. All the situation which is happening in the region is giving less and less pressure on Israel to act in any particular. Unfortunately, all what's happening is not in the Palestinian cause favor, because the world attention is diverted everywhere. There's eye on the human crisis in Syria. There's an eye on the human crisis in Libya. There's eye on problems which happen on the Iraq border. There are the problems in Yemen. the problems between Iran and Saudi. So Israel is sort of given a free rein